2022 meeting. First, we'll start off a call to order and roll call. Tim Lovelace.
Here.
Carl Ray.
Here.
David Eaton.
Here.
Steve Breeding.
Here.
Rebecca Dye.
Here.
Horace Christian.
Present.
And Luann Wallace.
Here.
Ma'am, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Lester. At this time, I'm going to ask that we rise for the invocation. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Father God, Lord, we love you, we thank you, and we praise you today, Father. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to come out and represent our county, Father. Father, we ask you to be with us, be with our leaders at this time, so they may make the right decisions for us, Father. Father, be with those that are struggling in all the parts of the world, especially Ukraine today, Father. Father, forgive us for where we fail you each and every day, and help us be better people and be better, more like you. For it's in your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right, at this time, I need to have a motion for an approval of the agenda. And I will ask, Mr. Lester, did we add the, what we needed? Because I'm working off my Wednesday agenda.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
We added the presentations here.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Got a second? Any discussion? And all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, we also tonight have an acknowledgement. And tonight we're going to have a little presentation for Honaker Police Officer, Mr. Noah Ball. And I have asked that Mr. Eaton take care of that. That is his district. Mr. Eaton?
Is Noah in the building?
Yes.
He's on his way, Miss Wallace.
Okay, if you all see Noah when he comes in, would you please tell us and we'll make arrangements to do our presentation at this time. Currently, we have a presentation from the Cumberland Plateau Planning District, and that is Debbie Milton, and this is concerning the Daint sewer contract.
Yeah. Lou. There.
Debbie, I'm sorry, I'm working off of an old agenda. You'll have to go away for just a minute. That's okay. I know what it is. We have a presentation from the town of Cleveland, Virginia, and Debbie Music, representing tourism and the Cleveland Community Center and the Rabbit Ridge Pea Pickers. Come on, Debbie. I'm sorry. Thank you, honey.
Or not, but I'm going to educate you just a little bit about tourism that we can bring to our county. Here in Southwest Virginia, we have a unique dialect and our style of mountain music that came in with our settlers. Our music is unique and usually tells a story. We take this music for granted because it's a dying art. We wish to keep our heritage alive and be different than the rest of the world. The Rabbit Ridge Pea Pickers is a homegrown, self-taught band, raising 13 children, most learning to play an instrument, singing our mountain songs. This year makes 64 years of the band being together and performing entertainment for our county. Playing for over 250,000 striking coal miners during the 1989 Pittston coal strike, performing at Carnegie Hall, a statewide tour with Roots of America, not to mention numerous charity events, nursing homes, and competitive fiddlers conventions. The Rabbit Ridge Pea Pickers would like to thank the board for naming the stage at Cleveland Ball Field in their honor, and also recognize the talent of the the performers that have played there before them. I also have a couple of pictures I would like to share. This calendar is from the UMWA of the 1989 coal strike. Burl Ray and his brothers, raised down in Wilder, they performed, which that was a great honor for our area and recognition. While playing on Rabbit Ridge, on the Russell County side, they were recognized, and they were honored to get to play in Carnegie Hall. I'd like to also thank the board, the supervisors, for bringing tourism to our county. The Cleveland Horse Show, Mr. Eaton here, has so graciously helped so much with. It's been a huge success. Hundreds of people come to that horse show. And I guess you all been to Dip Dog, Shatley Springs, Pigeon Forge. They were just like Cleveland. They were nothing, you know. They had lost it all. Cleveland used to be the hub of Russell County. We had turkey drives. They'd bring turkeys in and sell them for the farmers. You know, they'd put a bell on a lead turkey and drive them into Cleveland. We had a carbolic plant. We had a knee-high plant. We had hotels, car sales. Don't have that anymore. We're in a flood zone. But Lonzo and I discussed that, and we could have a portable town. Who else has a portable town? Who would come to see a portable town? You put your town on wheels. You bring in your food trucks, your vendors. You can get old school buses that maybe you can get at auctions, renovate them, make you dining cars out of them, have picking porches in front of them, put everything on wheels and able to roll. It floods, take them up the road. We also need unique lodging. Do you know what glamping is? HGTV. We could have areas designed to bring money into our area by offering something different that nobody else has. We can have covered wagons, we can have solarized teepees, we can have the glamping tents, and also the covered wagons. We can have a chuck wagon in the center. We could also offer entertainment in a package and incorporate every small town in Russell County in this package. They could go to Honecker. What does Honecker have? Honecker's got a cannon. They've got a museum. They've got the music massacre that could perform an outdoor drama. You can come down the river, you can kayak, you can do fishing excursions. Then you come to Cleveland. We have the mussels in the Clinch River. All right. You can also, my mouth's getting really dry, I'm sorry. It must be the air. But we can also have the horse trails. Let them ride in a covered wagon if you'd like to do that. And we could offer unique food to our area. You can go on down, and I have to commend Miss Wallace on what she's done with St. Paul. It looks like something from Rockwell's painting now. I am so impressed. And I invested a little money up in Daint on some houses. I took a chance, and I'm so glad I did. I had people calling me from Wyoming, Washington State, Florida, New Hampshire, Connecticut. You know where they want to live? Daint. They want to live in Daint. You know why? Because of our unique living, our taxes. They don't have the hustle and bustle. They don't have the skyscrapers. But we're getting it cleaned up, right? So I have, so many ideas of storytelling that could be brought to our county. The stage down at Cumberland could also be used as an outdoor drama. They could perform the '89 coal mining strike. I know St. Paul's having a theater production through Labor Day, I think, or Memorial Day. And we could provide something like that. We could also change that stage for wedding venues. Have a country wedding venue. There's nothing else like that in our county. So that's about all I have to say. I just wanted to encourage you with what we have, because we take it for granted. We're used to it. But people all from here, they love our way of life, and they want to be here, and they'll come. Hikers, they don't spend a lot of money. Lookers, they don't spend a lot of money. We need money brought in. You incorporate your farmers, local beef, your vegetables, farmers markets, sell it to bring some restaurants in. Incorporate everything we have, our folk art. We have so many talents, quilt making, walking sticks, painted rocks. People buy rocks. If they'll buy a little piece of coal in a bag to present to someone, here's your lump of coal, they'll buy anything, right? So we have things to offer here that nobody else has. We can do mining tours in those abandoned mines and do a presentation with that.
Debbie,
So
I'm
my
going to
time
ask,
up.
well, yes, kinda.
I kind of drug it out.
Okay. We appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
And sharing your information and your enthusiasm.
Thank you
It
so
has
much.
not fallen on deaf ears, I promise you. We're going to make sure that that stage is named, correct? All right.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate you. And thank you, Rabbit Ridge Pea Pickers. We love you. Next one, Officer Ball, can you come up, please? Yes. Okay, moving along, Ms. Milton is here for the Cumberland Plateau Planning District to talk about a little bit of projects we're working on.
The Daint sewer project was funded for $2.5 million. We are in the process of getting that contract, getting under contract for that project. And I have sent the board about 5 different documents that need to be signed. So what I really need is a motion for those to be signed so that we can send them back into the Department of Housing so we can be under contract and get that project started.
Okay. Is that it?
That's it.
So
It's
moved.
easy. Oh,
Second.
That's all I need.
oh my goodness. Any discussion?
Need to authorize the appropriate parties to sign.
Thank you, Mr. Breeding. That's what we will do. All in favor? Yes, thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, next on our agenda is a request for the Canine Search and Rescue. And Matt Sutherland is here. I told him if he didn't want to say anything, he didn't have to. But he's very talented and he has a beautiful dog. And so can CC come up and kind of, everybody see CC? This is CC, everybody. She's very well trained. And if you see anybody riding a motorcycle, that's CC. So here she is. Matt, you want to say a few words?
Yeah, this is CC. It's one of 5 I've got in the kennel here at home. And what we do is we worked the Mendota murder search. We get out and do public relations. She works up at she's been on WYMT out of Kentucky on the news, where she works up at the Breaks Interstate Park as a bark ranger. We do the Christmas parade as the Grinch and the dog Max. Some of y'all have probably seen that. But what we'd like to do is those dog boxes at the animal shelter, they've been sitting over, leaned up next to the creek, and they're going to waste, and they're taking up valuable real estate. I like to go to the animal shelter just to walk dogs and be, some of my dogs at home are actually from the shelter, and they're good dogs out there. But those boxes are serving nobody any purpose right now, and the people out there would like to see them go. So if you guys could figure out something and possibly consider our kennel to use a box, because we missed out on the search in Kentucky and Virginia during those tornadoes. So we couldn't take all the dogs, but if we'd had a means to do so, we could have really used those dog boxes.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Lester, can you give us some information on this so we can make a decision for Matt and CC tonight?
Absolutely. These are boxes that are sitting down at the animal shelter that we had been utilizing. We had been replaced them. So right now, we were going to surplus these boxes and move them out. They would need a lot of work, as Mr. Sutherland knows, so we were going to move them. You know, they're almost to the point of salvage. So he has approached us to request. He thinks that he can use what he's got for the trailers to work with the Canine Search and Rescue for the Russell County search.
Okay, board members, are you all in favor of helping Matt out and CC with this project?
I'll make a motion to that effect, Madam Chair.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a second. All in favor?
Oh, well, discussion.
Oh, I'm
Just to-
sorry.
No, that's
I
okay.
usually do that.
Uh,
I'm moving you
I'm
on.
all in favor of it. I just wondered on the procurement side of that, do we have the right to go ahead and just do that?
Disperse with it.
Surplus it?
Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure.
Yes, sir.
I'm in favor.
Okay, let's do this. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. It's all yours. Thank you, Matt. Okay, next on our reports tonight, or our presentations, is by the county administrator, and this is our 2021 county election redistricting plan. This is something that we've had to do through the census. So Mr. Lester will give you this report as we're all sitting up here looking at these big fat maps. We can see them now.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Russell County Board of Supervisors. As everyone knows, it has been that time again for the 2020 census. Everyone also knows that during the pandemic, I don't know how many of y'all answered the doors and how many you didn't, probably a lot that didn't, because the pandemic was going on. And also the census, in another alternative method, they did a lot of online. Well, during that time, we only had in Russell County a 43% participation. So anyone that knows numbers and you get 43% of a total count, there's going to be some that are being missed. You're doing an overcount or an undercount. So what had happened is the President of the United States, he delayed the census to try to get a more accurate count. And it went into October of last year. And then after that, everyone knows, or some of y'all most know, that the Virginia Supreme Court then modified the adjustments from the census to include the inmates and the parolees and the rest. And during that, what you see on the screen is what the Virginia Supreme Court's final map on the districting was throughout the state of Virginia for both the House of Delegates and the Senate. As you can see, between the counties and voting districts and the precincts. What you're looking at right now is the Russell County blocks and satellite. And I'll be going through a presentation right real quick that, as you can see, this is the House of Delegates. As you can see, the Virginia Supreme Court final. Through my districting, they did the counts, they did the adjustments, and they broke down each one of the districts and the precincts for us. So during that time, the county had to go back through to make sure our drop in population. And I'll go into those numbers here just in a second. And during our presentation. As I said before, this is the Russell County local redistricting. When we first got these numbers, we were very concerned. There was 43% in participation within a census, and that means a lot to the counties, especially during schools, grants, funding that we get. It has a very important role, and we did not want to be undercounted. You know, as hard as Southwest Virginia counties work, we need this, and it is a great supplement for our funding. It does a lot of benefits within our programs, within our different departments, in the schools, and provides, for example, free meals. These are the grants that come through and the funding that comes through. So what we did, we used multiple sets of data on these. We utilized the 2020 census, which was only 43%. We also utilized the Virginia Supreme Court, which we're required by law to use, those numbers also. But we also made sure that they were valid when we looked through our real estate records, our personal property records, our election records. So we were looking at 5 sets of data to try to get within a ballpark of what we're doing to make sure that the Virginia Supreme Court was valid in their proposal. So during this time, as you see, a redistricting is the process of redrawing the boundaries with any district or any precinct. Districts must be drawn using the census data that have been adjusted by the Virginia Department of Legislative Services. And again, during the pandemic, it got delayed, and the Virginia Supreme Court required that the districts to be redrawn every 10 years, one person, one vote principle. And what that means is substantially equal population standard. Not every county is going to have, or every district is going to have an exact amount, and I'll go into those numbers later. But districts must be contiguous and compact under the Section 5 of the Constitution of Virginia. The Constitution also requires in Virginia that cities and towns must redistrict within 2021. The districts must comply with the one person, one vote, and they must be contiguous and compact. Also, having technology problems here. There we go. Sorry about that. I may be too far away. Under the Code of Virginia local redistricting requirements, the General Assembly is responsible for reapportioning and redistricting all congressional and state legislative districts. The local governing bodies, and that's why we're here tonight, the local governing bodies are responsible for each local district. Under Section 7 of 5 of the Constitution, sets forth these principles of responsibility. Reapportion and the redistricting is required again every 10 years. They keep repeating that. It must meet the compact territory. It must be continuous, and it must be provide a election district that can be clearly defined and observable boundaries. Also under the Code of Virginia, local district requirements, the most recent decennial population figures from each locality adjusted by the Department of Legislative Services. This is a division that has been required by the Virginia Supreme Court to take the census, adjust the numbers, and then give us the final count based off of these maps that you've seen before. Each locality is responsible for determining its obligation of multiple sources. That's what I was referring to earlier. We use 5 different data sets to confirm these numbers to get something that was realistic to ensure that Russell County does not lose funding or capacity or elections, and equal fair representation within each vote and each district within each precinct. And this, we have been working on this project since September, so we've done a lot of counting. Of course, what the redistricting requirements that we elect also it applies to the school boards. So the districts and the precincts, if the Board of Supervisors approves them, it also flows to the districts for the school boards. So also in there, you have precincts and polling places. Everything is well defined, and everything have each district has its own separate precincts, number of precincts, and its own polling places, which must be defined also. The established election districts is provided in the Constitution of Virginia. The established precinct is not. That is under the Constitution of Virginia. However, precincts do show up in the Constitution in this way: a qualification of voters. And then a qualification of voters is you're not a felon, you're able to vote, you're a U.S. citizen. These are qualifications of a voter within a county. And it also, it's under Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution of Virginia that sets forth the qualifications of a voter. Again, the Code of Virginia also defines a precinct to be a territory designated by the governing body, city, or town to be served by a polling place. Looking at for each precinct and each polling place and establish of these reflected our current population within the county. So what we had to do, each governing body county, of course, has to establish an ordinance of how many precincts the governing body deems necessary. The districts are set by the population. The precincts will be set by the Board of Supervisors. Bodies are authorized to increase or decrease the number of precincts or to alter boundary precincts, subject to the Code of Virginia. Also under the code, it establishes one precinct for each town unless the town council establishes more than one precinct, which you'll see that we work with the town of Lebanon in this election to define that. See that later in the presentation. Again, even the precincts must be compact and contiguous and territory and have clearly defined boundaries. Precincts also have a minimum maximum requirements. That they wanted to be very careful in precincts, and this is represented. A precinct has a minimum maximum number. The minimum it has to have is 100. The maximum it can have in a precinct is 5,000. With our population, which is 25,781, our precincts are to get to 5,000 per precinct out of 15 we don't have to worry about the top number, but we do have to worry about the bottom number. But one of the things that the Code of Virginia emphasizes in their selection of precincts, every precinct, y'all have voted here for a long time. You have lived in your precinct within a long time. It becomes a community event. And that's one of the things I want to emphasize. Not that precincts are just a number, not precincts are defined, by the Board of Supervisors, but it is part of a community. If I look, when I was going through the data, if I look into the area of the Lebanon precincts or the Daint precincts or the Cook's Mill, whatever precinct I was in, those ones in that little community look forward to going to the precincts. So that's one of the things that the Board of Supervisors has to consider. What existing precincts we have are still applicable and still community-driven. So, again, it says the member of registered voters for the precincts at the time established no fewer than 100 and no more than 5,000. It also requires the precincts to have, again, they keep going into it, clearly observable boundaries. Now, the U.S. Census will not give a population count for a precinct unless the boundaries of the precinct meet the Bureau's standards for census blocks. What that means in essence is we defined ours. The census was done in 2010. We went to 2020. The counties do not wait 10 years and go, okay, we got to do a census. Every year, the counties certify their boundaries and counts each and every year. So they were not like going from year 1 to 10 at year 10 and then decided to work on this. So we knew the count was going down. We knew what we were looking at the final end. One of the things that through the U.S. Census and the state of Virginia was the pandemic. We was not expecting, last time we did the census, we had good participation. One of the concerns during the pandemic, no one would answer the door because we didn't know if you had COVID or not, so everybody was very cautious. And a lot of people at the time, especially the elderly, did not have access to internet, so they did not perform. That's only the reason that we had the 43% participation. Again, that's when we went back to 5 sets of data to make sure and confirm what we were doing. And as we went through it, we looked at each one of the polling places, but there must be one polling place in each precinct by law. So this is one of those community things in each precinct. So during the 2020 census that was done by, Department of Commerce through the U.S. Census during the pandemic, which they mentioned here. There are 2 basic forms of information that was needed to redraw the district lines. The population data maps, which they got from Russell County, and you're going to see that. We had exact, numbers within each precinct within each district. They were really well defined. The Census Bureau provided both the adjusted by the Virginia Department of Legislature, which is the Virginia Supreme Court, of the adjusted ones, and those are the numbers that we utilize under the Public Law 94-71. So, and each one of the blocks under the Census Bureau, the counties, the towns, the precincts, which they call voting tabulation districts, the census tracts and blocks. That's how far it goes down. It goes from blocks to tracts to precincts to districts. It goes step up, step down. So during this time, we were making sure there was no boundary or annexations, any adjustments on lines. We was making sure that during both phase 1, phase 2, by the federal law, that we were complying with these numbers and utilizing them. We also made sure that the local electrical districts were approved by the Virginia Supreme Court, and we had substantial, equal, and permitted deviations. Now, what does that mean? And I'll go into that now. The U.S. Supreme Court has held that election districts are subject to substantially equal population standard, meaning that populations of a local election district must not be precisely equal. So, therefore, with this standard of substantial equality and permitted deviations, the question came in then, how much is the deviations permitted in what circumstances? Case law answering this question, it has evolved over the decades. In 2016, the U.S. Supreme Court provided clear, concise summary of where the standard deviation do. When drawing a state or local legislative district, jurisdictions are permitted to deviate somewhat from the perfect population's equality to accommodate traditional districting objectives. And that is when the maximum population deviation from the largest district to the smallest district is less than 10%. There you go. Largest to the smallest is less than 10%. And that concerned us because we've seen a large extrapolation in population, and you'll see those numbers here soon too. We had an 8.1% drop in population off the first figures. That was 2000 some. We ended up 3,116 drop from the 2010 to the 2020 population. Where were they at? Where did they go? And when we started digging into these 5 sets of data, we found out where that 10% went. And again, you have the plus or minus 5 deviations of each local district and each local precinct. And this is the Virginia Supreme Court law, the final version, and the final approved maps. Now, you gotta remember and I don't know if y'all can see it, one of the important dates is the Virginia Supreme Court did not even approve the final maps until December the 28th, 2021. So we had to scramble that because they held it up for the population, for the inmates and the rest of the populations and race, and we had to jump through hoops in the last 60 days to make sure our numbers were matching the Virginia Supreme Court's. So during that time, we were working on them. As you can see, this is the Russell County 2020 redistricting. We have, everyone knows that we have 6 districts and 15 precincts. That's the way it works. And I'll show you better maps here in a minute. This is just the public notice for this hearing. And these are demographics, as you can see, from the U.S. Census. And only I like these things. So these are demographics of our education, our skill sets, our employment rates, but they give you more than just a population count. So we were able to utilize these data to also for grants and later things that we need when we're putting in for other things for the county. So when we were going through them, of course, these are the maps that come in. Like I said, comes in at blocks and goes to tracts, and then they go to precincts, and then they go to districts. These are the defined districts and precincts. Each one of them, as you can see, is well defined. Here is the New Garden voting district. It's a GI block. It's got a population of 1943 and has a voting population of 1570. We had to go back and use our 5 sets of data to verify each one of these precincts in Russell County to make sure that they were still valid. As we went through them, then we picked up the other precincts within the county, from Cooksville, Moxon, all the way down to East voting district. As you can see, each one of the maps and the grids equal down into a population. Those populations are defined your districts. They all have to be substantially equal in population. So what did that come into? Sorry about that.
If you're gonna do that, you need to talk about it.
Thank you. Yes. So here is the 15 precincts. And also in there we have, one of the good things, and I'm going to congratulate Russell County in the history that y'all did, and you'll see here in a few minutes. You had 15 precincts voting. You got 18,564 voters that's inactive, 412, a total of 19,066 all voters. And it breaks out to military and et cetera. The next thing you have, and where you see the stars at, these are things that changed from the 2010 to the 2020 census that we had to physically, had a location on the precinct changes. For example, anybody at the Moccasin School knows that we had shut it down. It got too bad to vote in, so we moved it to the community center. Same way at the Belfast School, we moved it to the fire hall. So these are the changes from 2010 to 2020 that we had to account for legally. This is what I referred to before. This is for the town of Lebanon. They had to, on the Lebanon West Precinct, it has one polling place now. So that was defined by the town. And the towns have the right for it because that's their voting, that is their elections. They had to pass an ordinance. Now here is the consolidated data. The total population in 2010 in Russell County was 28,897. 2020 is 25,781, a difference of 3,116 we lost in this county. And I went, oh my goodness, I said, we lost 3,000 people in this county. Where are they at? That's not good. Most populations are picking up and they're from 1% to 2% growing. We lost 10.8% in population. So then I had to find out where did 3,116 people go. So in that, so here's how it worked out. Pulling the records from the real estate, personal property elections, and the census that we had during this time frame, and what that equals out to, it sounds like a lot, but you got to remember it's over a 10-year period. So that comes out to 300 people approximately, give or take, a year. So if I break it down between 6 districts, that's 50 people in each district. Then if I have the ones that pass away, move away, then the numbers start going down. And then I had to be concerned about, did we lose that count, that population, 3,116, in 1 or 2 or 3 districts? Then that would have made the lines change because you had to have substantial equal population during that time. So as we came through, as you can see, now if I can find my little light here, that's working so. District 1, which is Tim's district, Mr. Lovelace's district, he has 4,282. This is the breakdown of each precinct, and et cetera. District 1, District 2, District 3, 4, and 5, and 6. These are the populations. Here is the ones for the voting age population, active voters, inactive voters, and total registered voters. Well, again, as you can see from District Steve, and I'm going to point him out, he's the largest district. It's in the town of Lebanon. It has the highest population. So from District 5 to District 2, which has the least population, it is not a variance of more than 10%. So therefore, it was equal across all the districts because, you know, we were losing them. The kids were graduating and moving away. Then I also found one of the biggest ones of all. During the records that we were looking at, 10 to 12% of the county population are renters. They were moving in and moving out. They would move out of Honeacre and move to Lebanon. They'd move to Lebanon and move to Daint. So they were fluctuating, 10 to 12% of the population was fluctuating during this time. They do every year. They do every month. So to get a base, this is the actual count from the Virginia Supreme Court that we can get valid records of real estate records on, not renters, but really valid records. And we know that Russell County citizens. And so the active voters, here's what I was talking to before. The total registered voters in 2010 was 19,102. We dropped 10.8% in population. Now, in 2020, we have 19,066 voters. That is 36 less, with dropping 3,116 in population. What did that mean to us? When we pulled the voting records, y'all come out and voted for the first time heavy in 10 years. So that's what it equaled out to. Y'all finally got out of the house. So I want to tell you, and what we did, and we went through these over and over to make sure and confirm it, but as you can see, 10 years and dropping 3,000, you still are pulling higher numbers voting And that's why when you seen the national or Mr. Youngkin's election, how Southwest Virginia pulled him through. Now, when we were in Richmond, thank you. When we were in Richmond, he came out personally and thanked Southwest Virginia counties for pulling him through. He knew it, and he still knows it. This is why. Yes, thank you. Yes, yes. Yes. Yes.
All right. Mr. Lester has the floor, please.
Yes.
Mr. Lester has the floor.
And I appreciate all the claps. So again, I also wanted to show different demographics, but this is the last slide and the rest are maps, and I'll be glad to give anybody a presentation of this anytime they want it. From District 1 to District 6, as you can see, the population in Russell County was 28,897. It went down to 25,781, which is the 3,016. District 2 had a variance of 102 drop, and Steve's went up 103. So everything, we had to count where they went to once they moved. So we was tracing down everybody and who stayed here, where they went, and what they did. But again, so under the Russell County election districts that must be developed within the county population of equal districts of a population of 25,000, the ideal district population, which is under the Constitution of Virginia, would be 6 districts divided by the population of 25,781, which is 4,297. As you can see, our upper range and lower range, all of our districts are within that range. So therefore, all Russell County districts are within the ideal district population per the Virginia Constitution. So now, that was 6 months worth of work. So in a summary of 15 minutes, but I'll be glad, to talk to anyone afterwards. But here is a breakdown of the voting districts between the 6 districts. This is a breakdown of the precincts. This is a breakdown of the House, District 43 now, which is Will Moorfields. We have, this one is right now Mr. Wampler's. This is the Senate, this is just a color code of it. Here is the Senate, which which is changing to, which is District 6. And it's just different color codes. And these are the maps that we had to deal with going through each and every house, every boundary, every adjustment, tree, power line, river, to make sure that we did our due diligence to ensure that Russell County had the correct population during its census for its districts and for its precincts, and to ensure that we get equal representation and funding. And that is all. Thank you, Board.
Well, you've wore us out, Mr. Lester. Thank you. That's a lot of information.
Could you go over part of that?
Yes, and if anyone wants Mr. Lester to come to your house and do a presentation, he's available. If you did not get that information this time around, we'll send him back around again. Thank you all for sitting through that. This has been an arduous task for all of us, and we wanted to make sure we got it right. So just so you're sitting here tonight and listening to this, we understand that it is a difficult thing to learn and listen to, but as you can tell, there's no stone left unturned here tonight, I think. Moving on, we will now have a public hearing. And so I will open the floor. Mr. Lester, do you do that or can I? Okay. I'll open the floor for public comment on the redistricting. So if anybody else has anything left that has not been said tonight on this subject, please step up. Do we have anybody that wanted to speak on public comment for the redistricting? Anybody? Anybody? Going once? going to give you just a second or two more to make sure that all hearts are clear. Board members, do you all have anything you want to say or add?
Lonzo, as I understand it, the basic boundaries of the district really didn't change any. Maybe just tweak a house here and there. Is that correct?
The boundaries themselves did not change. Now they what we did look, because each one of the boundaries are defined by the Board of Supervisors that are in place, and the precincts are the same. Now, based off the population, equal representation, each of the districts came within the range of the 10% deviation. It did not. Make a long story. I like talking this stuff, so guys.
I think that's the biggest thing that the public would want to
Yes.
know, if the district boundaries changed at all, so they did not.
And that is one of the things that the districts did not change, the precincts did not change, but the board, at their pleasure, have that authority to change the precincts. But guys, remember, these are just more than numbers. It's part of the community. So each one of the precincts has its own home, as they call it. So
Wait, I have another question. You said the town of Lebanon only had one precinct seat now.
for their voting, for the town council.
Okay.
Yes, they moved it from the fire hall to the elementary school.
Elementary school,
Because
okay.
the bigger problem, yes.
Okay, but we still have the west and the east.
You still have the west
precincts.
and east
Okay.
because those are
All right.
within the districts of the Board of Supervisors.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anything else before I close this public hearing? Okay, I'm formally closing the public hearing. We are finished with redistricting. Thank you very much again, Mr. Lester. And remember, he will come to your house and do a presentation if you need one. All right, moving on. And I know that you guys have sit here, and I apologize that we've done this on a night that's maybe a little bit long for you. So, moving on to new business, I need approval of the minutes that you have in your packet. I hope everyone has read those thoroughly, and I'm ready to take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Christian. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ms. Dye. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Approval of expenditures. That's in your packet also.
I make a motion, we approve our expenditures as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Breeding. I need a second.
I'll second.
Second, Mr. Christian. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Should have asked for discussion. And I'll take chairman's pleasure here, but our budget and everything with our financials, we're still on target with everything, correct, Mr. Lester? Your microphone isn't working.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. All right. Now we're moving on to committee appointments for board consideration. We have the local college board, which is Southwest Virginia Community College Board. Dr. Brown has resigned that position as he is retiring from the school. So I need a motion to fill this board term for 4 years.
Madam Chair, I'd like to nominate Cynthia Compton.
Okay, we have a nomination for Cynthia Compton.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Next, we're moving on to the Russell County Public Service Authority. We have a vacant seat there. It is a 4-year term. It expires on June 24th of 2023. And I believe that is Mr. Lovelace's district.
Yes, ma'am.
I need a motion for an appointment.
I would like to nominate Tommy Tigner.
Okay, we have a motion for Tommy Tigner. I need a second.
I'll second it.
Got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay, now we have come to the time that I think most of you are here for. This is our citizen comment period. Now, I will ask you, if you want to speak, your name is on our list. Please speak into the microphone and give us your name and your address, please. And also, I will call each of you. You will have 3 minutes. Now, I'm not going to be real strict on the 3 minutes, but I'm pretty strict. So if you are finishing up a sentence at the end of that 3 minutes, I will let you finish it, but I won't let you have a whole paragraph or a page. I asked each of you to be cognizant of the time. If you have things that's already been said on your list, and it's no different from anyone else's, please lend your time to someone else because your questions will be answered. I'm asking our attorney and the county administrator to take notes during your comment period because we want to make sure we have no misunderstanding when we walk out this door tonight. And so Ms. Patton will be writing down your concerns. That way, you will have a direct answer at the end of the public comment period. In other words, when all hearts are clear and everyone has spoke, that will be the time that they will address each concern concerning what you're talking about, and it will be by Virginia code and the new ordinance that we are implementing for noise. So I hope if you don't understand it, I'll help you along, but I will call on you. So I want to hear everything you have to say. No questions, no comments are bad. This is us trying to make it better for all of us. So I asked you to be polite, and we will listen. Thank you very much. I'm going to get ready to call. Okay, first one is Wayne Perkins. Mr. Perkins, you're on the spotlight. First off, thank you.
Well, my name's Wayne Perkins. I'm 114 Friendship Drive.
Turn your microphone around. Turn your podium around. You're addressing us tonight. Okay? That'll help you.
All right.
Thank you.
I'm from Swords Creek, and I'm a pastor at Revival Center in Swords Creek. And my concern with the ordinance is things that we have been confronted with over the pandemic. Throughout this pandemic, the then governor, Northam, had his regulations and rules that we had to abide by. And there were times that you wasn't allowed to gather out together in the house of God. And we went outside, and we went outside and spread everybody out. We had our speakers, and we had our amplifier to try to make sure everybody could listen, could hear. We moved it inside when we had the opportunity. You know, we even had rows that you couldn't sit in. We even had people wearing the mask and all that. But my concern is, what if it happens again? Or what if something comes up again? Are we going to be told that we can't go back outside because the noise ordinance is bothering some neighbor, somebody that's concerned? Down the road, somebody says you're too loud. Those are the things that bothers me. I mean, we tried to do our part the best we could, and we're going to worship the Lord. We're going to glorify God. It's all because of Him. And you know, whether that gets too loud, I mean, I apologize. If that offends you, I don't apologize for glorifying God. I don't apologize for worshiping the Lord. And so that is my concern. And then I have another smaller concern that me and my boys, we went out at 5:30 in the morning. I'd get them up and we'd go out, and we had a second job. I had a second job. I'd do my job during the week, and I'd go in the evenings, and I'd go on Saturday, and we'd eat and we'd mow. There were times it may have went by the time frame. I don't know exactly what that time frame is, but I do know we'd be up at 5:30 in the morning to try to beat the heat. And we'd get out, and we had a job that was 6 to 9 hours of weed eating. It wasn't very little mowing. It was mainly weed eating. And you know, you can have neighbors say, "Well, you're bothering me. You're disturbing me." I'm getting up 6 o'clock and weed eating. I mean, we got up 5:30 to get ready. And so those are my concerns, or those kind of things. And like I say, especially for the church. I mean, we've done everything we can to abide by the rules and by the laws. I want us to be able to have our freedom to worship like we always do. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Thank you very much. You did not use up all your time, so thank you. Next one up is Mr. King, B.J. King.
The kind of noise ordinance I've been talking about It's not the church. Okay?
Mr. King?
Okay. I'm an ordained minister too, registered right here in Russell County at the Lebanon Courthouse. It can be checked out. I'm also a Vietnam veteran. I have over 8 years. I have hit landmines. My left side and back's messed up. You know, I have a right too. I have a right so when I lay down at night that I can get a little rest. We all have rules and regulations. You have a license. But if you abuse that license, driver license, to where you're endangering somebody else, you can lose it. I'm not saying that, you know, sometimes we have to use common sense. You can always look for a reason not to, but you can look better, especially as a pastor, to help your fellow man, to make it a better way of living, to help him out. So I bought these meters, and they don't go like if the church is having a thing. They don't read past that. What they read past is like at 3 and 4 in the morning, and the drug dealers across the street are having a wild party. We're wasting taxpayers' money to send a deputy there because he can't do nothing. We're not only wasting the money, we're putting his life in danger. Okay? A lot of us old vets, we're getting old. And we get contrary in the middle of the night. Believe me, I do. You get me up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, you better have a good reason. But in the old days, it's not like now. Like I said before, if I was making a lot of noise, David lived near me, he'd come over and knock on my door. Hey, BJ, how about calming that noise down? I'm sleeping, I'm sick. A lot of these guys work. They gotta have their sleep at night. You know, I don't think 5 o'clock in the morning, 5:30, somebody going out weed eating or something is going to even raise the meter up on these. It has a good sound barrier. It shows you what's accessible and what's not. But if you're talking about 3 or 4 in the morning and they got the stereo blasting so loud that it wakes up the whole neighborhood, you're infringing on all their rights. They all have a right to sleep. They all have a right for peace. Not only that, I have an old guy, 80 years old, that drives the bus. He leaves for work at 4:30 in the morning. If he don't get his sleep, we're not only endangering him, we're endangering all those kids, and they come over your way. He goes over there and picks those kids up and brings them back to the college. He gets back home about 10:30 in the morning. He's got to go back to sleep, you know? That's all we're asking for is pure common sense. I'd like to pass these meters out. I'll give them to Miss Wallace. You can look at them. Y'all can decide what you want to do. The compliments to Russell County. You want to use them, you can use them. If not, give them back to Miss Wallace. You can give them to me back later, whatever you want. I even checked though. The town of Lebanon has an ordinance. And their ordinance just says at 11 o'clock.
Mr. King?
Yeah, I know, I'm over. It's quiet time. My 11 o'clock is up. I'm out.
That is too cool. Thank you, Mr. King. I appreciate it. I've got Matt Sutherland down here, but I think that he signed up to speak before, so we're good. Is Matt and Cece's gone, right? Okay. Next in line, we have Mike Dye. Mr. Dye from, and please remember to give your name and address. We haven't been doing that.
My name is Mike Dye, 10300 New Garden Road, Harnett, Virginia. I live in District 3. I had a good speech today till I found out everything I complained about is supposed to be exempted. And I guess what bothers me the most is I talked to 2 supervisors, and they didn't know everything was exempt, from dogs barking to church. All church activities are exempt. And, you know, you get to talk about all church activities exempt. I mean, you're opening the door for everything. And, you know, so I finally just asked a question. I asked why, what's not exempt? And it was brought up, and 3 supervisors brought this up about people sleeping through the night and getting up the next morning. Everybody don't work day shift. I mean, you've got people that work second shift, third shift, that sleep during the day. And you may have a third shift guy that wants to sleep from 2 p.m. to 9 at night. I mean, does he not have the same right to sleep as the day shift guy does? I look up here, we've created in 1786, we've gone 236 years without a noise ordinance, and I think we could go another 236 without a noise ordinance. And if I go outside.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dye, ladies and gentlemen, I asked you.
If I go outside for a church service, and I read that in there, it talks about but it talks about an amplified voice. I mean, we've got people that lives up from the church where I pastor that says they can hear our church services now, and we're inside. And I just want to be guaranteed that if we want to have a watch night service that goes past 12, ain't nobody going to come to the church and tell us, hey, you got to quieten it down. Or a tent revival outside, or a sunrise service at 6 o'clock, or whatever. And you know, I asked a couple of supervisors about running saws late at night, and then I found out today that's exempt. What about farm equipment after 9 o'clock? I found out today that's exempt. I mean, if all this is exempt, well, my district supervisor didn't know. The supervisor at large didn't know. The only reason I found this out today was because I called the chairman and asked to move the meeting down in the conference room. And I think it's very disrespectful that you didn't for the crowd. I think when you can say, well, there'll be enough room to sit and stand, I really think that was a ridiculous answer when you get to sit in padded seats up there that's paid for by the taxpayer. And then this would have been so easy to move. And I'm not being a smart aleck, I'm just telling you fact, Jack. I mean, you know, but after calling today to get the meeting moved, I found out that this is exempt, that's exempt, this is exempt, that's exempt. If everything's going to be exempt, then there's no use voting this noise ordinance in. This should be voted down 7-0. It shouldn't pass. And thank you for my time.
All right. I'm going to butcher this, so please forgive me. It looks like Cody. Okay. Cody Jackson, come on up. I apologize.
I'm a pharmacist, so I'm used to really bad handwriting.
Oh, the doctor in you came out, huh?
So first of all, let me say good evening to the Board of Supervisors. Thank y'all for allowing us time to speak. My name is Cody Jackson, and I'm also a minister at Harmony Community Church in Belfast, and I live at 851 Copper Road in the Cleveland area of the county. I came today to voice concern over that noise ordinance. After reading the actual ordinance, I did come to believe that great effort was made with regards to making sure that it kept in line with established legal precedent regarding the objectivity of what actually constitutes a noise disturbance. However, I still believe that the ordinance does propose some potential risks to cause unintended hardships to the residents of our county. I think a little too little consideration was given to the cultural aspects of our community, especially with respect, of course, to free exercise of religion. I have lived in Southwest Virginia my entire life, and being a Christian myself, I know how many deeply held traditions that we have. I have grown up listening to great men and women of God declare the glory of God with great fervor and excitement. I've watched many weary folk who shout the victory of God with tears streaming down their face. On the outside, their life looks like they have no reason to have the joy that they have. And now, while we as Christians typically will condemn pointless racket, we are anything but quiet. Most of us ring in the new year with services lasting well past midnight. We celebrate the resurrection of Christ by gathering in for service before the sun rises over the Clinch Mountain Range on Easter. And outside services are common for us, perhaps even required at times, like has already been mentioned with the COVID-19 pandemic. These services actually have a special place for me because I gave my heart to Christ in one in 2006 in a tent revival. So I want to be specific. My greatest concerns lie with a couple of the following things. Exception K mentions that protected expression would not be a part of this ordinance, but it also carried with it not amplified expression. Now, if amplified expression means or can be defined, or any of these fall into that definition, as shouting or yelling or singing, then most Baptists and Pentecostals here are simply going to call that a great meeting. Furthermore, while exemption were given to a great many things, such as sports and other things, there's no direct mention given for a regular course of a religious service. So I feel like we desperately also need a specific call out for religious services that are conducted outdoors on private property. The reason, of course, being already mentioned that we could be able to go out in course of a pandemic, or in course somebody like me is lost and really needs to hear the gospel and will come to a tent revival when they won't come to a church house. It may seem unnecessary for some of you to drill down such specifics, but I want to remind you of this, that just this year in a county of Michigan, a board stopped praying before their meetings just like you did tonight because that the Freedom from Religion Foundation admonished them for doing so. So I ask that you postpone this until more public comment can be made. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Okay, next one. Mr. Lester, are you timing? Okay. All right. Anyway, let's see. Where are we? I believe Stephen Dameron is next. Stephen, are you here? Oh, yes. Okay. Come on up, Stephen. Give us your name and address, please.
All right, thank you. My name is Pastor Stephen Dameron. I live at Swords Creek and pastor the Clarks Valley Church of Jesus Christ, and I thank you for allowing me your time this evening. And I'm like Mike and him, I didn't know that the church was going to be exempt and weed eating was going to be exempt. And so you sort of threw me a curveball. But on the part about the being amplified, we have some people at our church that is a little hard of hearing. And even when we have services outside, we have to use amplifiers so that they can hear that. And if someone down the road, which we've not been faced with that problem, but you never know what's out in front of you, if someone comes and says that our service during the middle of the day is bothering them, is they going to be something there to protect our amplified noise because of people in our church that has a hard time of hearing, even though we're outside? And we're like Mike and them, we bring the new year in by having church service and thanking the Lord for it. We don't pay attention to when it gets 12. If it's 12 and we're still going on, we'll go on. But if God's done before 12, we'll go to the house. And we have the sunrise services and stuff. And I know a lot of people sleep past 8 o'clock. And like if someone's weed eating, and as Wayne was talking about earlier, is there stuff in there to protect people doing that? Is that really going to be exempt from this? And I thank you for my time. And I really ain't got much to say. I had a mouthful, but thank y'all for taking that away from me.
You can thank God. All right. Mr. McLaughlin, Scott McLaughlin, Honaker, we're ready to hear you.
Well, I'm here my name's Scott McLaughlin. I'm from Honaker. I'm on the council there in town. I was coming for the noise too, but since I found out a lot of it was exempt, so I had on my mind to ask for a donation for my kids' fishing day. And I was also told that Lonzo had the money.
But you have to listen to redistricting.
But I appreciate anything the board can do to help me out. This has been going on for 5 years, and it's been a real success. The last 2 years, I've put $6,000 into this event. And, I mean, each year I've put $6,000. I buy fishing poles, I buy all the fish to stock a trout in the creek. But I appreciate anything y'all can help me with. Last year I had 395 kids.
Amazing.
I've got 122 fishing poles left over from last year to start with this year. And I'm shooting for enough prizes for 500 kids.
Wow.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Okay, Kirby Meadows.
Thank you, Board, for letting us come tonight and speak to you. My name's Kirby Meadows. I'm from Honaker, live up in Stone Branch area next to Drill. I was coming about the noise ordinance also, and I would ask y'all to consider, as you said, it's exempt. When you start listening to this amplification stuff, go to your schools for your outdoor activities. I don't have a thing against them. I'm for all of them. But they have amplifying that neighbors can hear several feet away. I've been there. And you know what? If our churches can't worship our God freely like we need to, it needs to be amplified. And there's people there out in the community that never go to church. That may be a time that they hear that word and hear what they need to hear. You know what? If we cut it down, and this right here, if we let this go through and start go against this, start going against the churches here, what's next? What's next? You know our government a lot of times are trying to knock down our churches already. Some of our governments are. But you know what? God is the basis we have our country founded on. He truly is. And if we're going to start knocking that out, we're in trouble. We need to leave this alone. Like I said, with it being exempt, I was under the impression it wasn't exempt, and it needs to be exempt. Churches need to be exempt. If they're not, personally, and this is my feeling only, anybody sitting on the board, if it was me, whoever, if I sit there and say I was a Christian, I voted for something that didn't exempt churches from this, I'm not the man I'm supposed to be. You need to be a man to stand for what God tells you and what he gives you in the Bible. That's what we're founded on. And if you can't vote that way and vote your heart that way, there's something wrong. I'm not your judge. You'll answer to God. Thank you all for your time.
Okay, Don from Green Valley. Oh, man, I'm so sorry. I'm slaughtering your name. Thank you. I know who you are. Welcome. Help us out here.
I'm Dr. Don Zampona. I live at 845 Green Valley Road. I'm the pastor at Green Valley Baptist Church. My question for the board is who's going to determine the level of noise? My question for the board is what's too loud? My question for the board is when we broadcast our worship services through our outdoor speakers and they go down the valley as they did during the time that the churches were shut down, and people heard our services, and we'd get calls to the church and comments about how wonderful it was to be able to sit on our porch and hear the church service, and now they're attending church at Green Valley Baptist Church so we can be together. My fear for the county, we don't need more government overreach.
Amen.
And my fear for the county is that this is going to pit neighbor against neighbor. And my fear for the county is, again, I ask each one of you, who's going to determine the level of noise? Who's going to determine if something is too amplified? Now, we've heard a lot about a lot of stuff being exempt. Well, so many things are going to be exempt. Maybe we just need to exempt this thing right on out of here.
Thank you, Pastor Don. Mr. Lester, my calculations and yours are not working out very well because I don't know about this. But anyway, we'll work through it. I promise mine says 3 minutes.
See?
Yours is slow. All right, let's see who we're going to hear from now. Dorothy Schrader from Daint, Virginia. Is Dorothy here? Thank you.
How are you? My name is Dorothy Schrader, and I live at 504 Lower Bearwater Road. And a police officer came by my house a couple of weeks ago and said that we can no longer park in the road in front of our homes. And ever since, we have a speedway by my house. 40 miles an hour is slow for them. They were fast before, but now I'm telling you, they're moving on. And I have a picture here I'd like for you to see. My front gate is 3 feet from my yard. And I have 2 grandchildren, 3 and 4 years old, that can step out that gate and get killed. I'm telling you, this can't happen. I mean, I'm so upset about this. I'm sorry. But they do visit me pretty often. And when our cars were parked in front of the road, which has been for 50 or 60 years probably, you know, they have to go around them cars, so they have to go slower by our homes. I understand if it's junkers, you know, out there, get rid of them. But going around the car ain't gonna kill nobody. And I have a rental property too. They have 3 cars and 1 garage. That's a 1-car garage. Where are they gonna park? They're telling me I can't have a worker to come to my home and work on my house and have a car parked on the road. I got my cars in my yard, but I can't even have a car on the road for somebody to park and come back there and work in my yard. I tell you what, I've never seen anything like this. And a police officer saying they're going to tow our cars away. If we park in front of our home, they're going to tow our cars. It's ridiculous. But I want to show you this picture.
Will, have you found it?
Here it is.
Uh-huh.
There's my gate.
Uh-huh.
Road. And now they're driving as far to the right as they can.
We'll probably need to work on that, okay? Trust me, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy, for coming. We need speed signs and bumps. Yes, thank you. All right, Gary Dotson. There you go. Castlewood.
Appreciate the board hearing me tonight, and Madam Chairman and other board members. My name's Gary Dotson. I live in Castlewood, and most of you know me, but anyway, I'm here for a little comment from last month that I made about the rumor that no previous board members could be appointed newly to boards. And if that rumor is true and the board feels that way, and the ones of you do or ones of you don't, you should consider your own rule that you should only run for election one time and serve one term. So if it applies to the committee members that you appoint through the county, which is important offices also, you should follow your own rule. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Next is Johnny, help me. Brown. It looks like Johnny Brown, or Johnny, is there a Johnny that signed up to speak? Johnny? Okay. If somebody comes in named Johnny, please let me know, okay? I don't want to leave anyone else. Okay. Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, let's move along. Lynn Hess.
My name's Lynn Hess. I'm at 137 Oakland Road in Swords Creek. I want to start off by saying that I think this noise ordinance is just like the other ordinances that you've passed in the last year. They're government overreach. We live in a rural county. We do not live in a town. I do not live in a town, and you don't need to be making it like a town. And that's what you're trying to do with this ordinance. I don't live in town of Lebanon because of the ordinances and law. I don't live in the town of Honaker because of the ordinance and the laws and the taxes that they have. I don't live in the subdivisions like Gray Hill because you got homeowners associations and things that you got to abide by. I live in a country. I live in the country where I can do what I want to do on my property. Miss Dodd, appreciate your attention, honey. All right, please do. I would like for you to leave my county alone as far as putting all these laws on us And us, we are residents of a county, not of a town, not of a homeowners association. I understand this man's problem back here, Mr. Keene. He was talking to me. We need to pass some kind of law to pinpoint these drug dealers. We need to pass some kind of law to pinpoint these trouble areas that we have, not the whole county. 28,000 residents, you got 3 complaints, and you're going to paint the whole county with one brush and say that we can't do what we want to on our property? Come on, you're just passing laws that we don't need. Like Mike said, we've been here for all these years and we've never had to have one. I've had trouble neighbors. I've had neighbors that's got dogs. I had a neighbor that had a moped that didn't have a muffler on it. I told him to get his hind into the house and shut it down. I didn't want to hear it no more. That's what country people do. We talk things out. We work things out. We don't need you to govern us like this. We need to be able to worship in our churches the way we want to worship. We got that freedom through the Constitution of the United States, and we don't need a local government coming down on our county, on our rural county. If you want to do it in the towns, that's up to town councils. If you want to do it in the homeowners association, that's up to the homeowners associations. But Russell County, the land that's in the county, should not be governed this way. They should not be putting these kind of ordinances on ordinary people out here in the country. And I've talked to some of you, and you know how I feel. But please don't do this, because it's just going down a slippery slope is what it is. And I want to ask, you said we could ask questions and she'd answer us at the end of it. When was the public meeting for this? I heard it was back in February of 2020. My, it's a long time. What is the normal noise level? Who's going to establish that boundary line? What's your starting line? Who gets to establish that? I say we don't need one, and we need to leave it alone.
Harold Asher of 363 Dillon Street. Harold.
I'm Harold Osborne. I live on 363 Dillon Street. My wife was going to speak next, but she doesn't. Oh, that's okay. But my issue is with the loud radios, okay? I have a daughter that is autistic. There's times she will literally pull her hair out and beg me to make this stop. We've tried to call, to speak to the sheriff, but they can't do nothing. There should be something in place to take care of this. I work 5-6 days a week. There's times 6 o'clock in the morning, this has went on with the loud music. And when we call, nothing gets done. And there should be something there to stop this. If you're in your living room or in your dining room having dinner and it sounds like a concert in your kitchen, that's a little loud. That's probably the most I would have to say. And my wife was going to speak next, but she doesn't want to. So it's Donna Osborne. So.
We'll hear from Donna if she wants to come in here.
She said.
Okay, all right. We've heard you. Thank you. Ronnie Sharp.
Yeah, we're trying, we ain't want nothing done with churches and nothing like that. What we want to do is get the noise down, the music down. They call music, if you want to say every word is said, then, you know what we're talking about. If they move down next to y'all's house, I bet you'd be already stopped. Would you not? You'd be stopped by now. But Russell County, seems like Russell County ain't doing nothing for the people. Not at all. That's all I got to say.
Chad Lampkins.
My name's Chad Lampkin from 1413 Purcell Road in Crossroads. I basically just agree with most of the people that's already spoke. I'm not for any kind of ordinance in our county that would allow neighbors to spite one another. I really do feel sorry for these people that are having problems out of bad neighbors. But I don't feel like there's any way that any kind of government situation can mandate that people get along with one another. I don't think that's possible. What would we do about dogs barking late at night? I guess same thing we've always done. I mean, there's never been a time when all of us not been bothered by dogs barking late at night. I mean, I don't see how we can, or your neighbor playing loud music. There's never been a time when we ain't been bothered by things like that. It seems to me like that's about the only two things that this whole ordinance is supposed to cover, and everything else is exempted. And it looks to me like it would be easier to try to come up with some kind of situation where we could take care of these problems that are actually bothering people. I really do. I know it's a problem. I realize that people have neighbors that you just can't get along with. But if we could figure out some way to just take care of those certain problems instead of just putting this whole ordinance out here and then exempting 19 things, it seems to me like that's an awful lot of exemptions for something. But anyway, like I say, I just basically agree with everybody else, and it does concern me about outdoor church activities and things like that too, probably as much as anything. But what the last guy that talked there, or the guy that talked about the county that we live in, I mean, it concerns me about church activities, and I love the Lord with all my heart. I mean, I want to be able to worship Him no matter what. But it also concerns me that we ought to be able to do what we want to on our own property. I mean, if we own property, I mean, we should be able to do whatever we want to, anytime, day or night. I mean, that's just the way it is. We need to be respectful of our neighbors. I mean, if I have neighbors that sleep of a daytime, I ought not to be making a whole lot of racket of a daytime, much less of a night. I mean, we just ought to be respectful of our neighbors. But I don't think the law's ever going to mandate that we do that. We just going to have to care about our neighbors one for another. I mean, that's all there are to it. And I don't think the law can make us care about one another. We're just going to have to get to a point where we do care about one another. Appreciate y'all.
Next one on our list is Larry Hughes. Mr. Hughes, are you here? Thank you.
Board for allowing me to come speak with you. My name's Larry Hughes. I live at 30 Glade Hollow Drive in Cleveland, Virginia. And I'm just going to tell you, I think I'm against the noise ordinance. I talked to my wife about this evening. We had some neighbors that caused a lot of problems, like you said. She and I agreed. It's an overreach of the government. This county was formed, 1786? Why now? Why are we doing it now? It's been here for many, many years. I think it is a government overreach, and I think we need to reconsider this. Again, my question to you, it's been asked before, what is noise? What level is noise? Who makes that decision? There's no way of saying, I may think one thing's noise, somebody else not. Some people like loud music, that's not noise. Other people like loud cars, that's not noise to them. Who determines what the noise is and what level it is? Who makes that decision? The question with noise, are we talking about domestic animals? Are we talking about cows, dogs. I heard the thing about dogs. How about roosters? When did they crow? What are we going to do with the roosters? They're crowing on my property. What are we going to do about it? This is an overreach. We don't need to move in this direction. Washington County did the same thing a couple years back. After they did it, they said, we made a major mistake. An example, there was a gentleman who lived out in the country, way out in the country, miles and miles out, been there maybe 40 years, had dog kennels, and that's part of his living. Had some neighbors moved in from somewhere, and they complained. Finally, they got him in court, fined him, made him get rid of his dogs, and that was his livelihood. What are we going to do? The law was on the books. Once it's on the books, it had to be enforced. The attorneys, the Commonwealth attorney, they had enforced that. And the county said, we made a mistake on this. And I'm telling you, you don't want to make this mistake here in Russell County. You need to consider the citizens. Again, because I've got a dog barking, I got kennel barking, I got rooster crowing. That's on my property. I've got to do something with it. So if I got a farm, I got cows mewing at night, or horses neighing, what are you going to do? Get rid of all of them? So we need to really consider this. There's something needs to be done. You know, when we have neighbors that are unruly, there needs to be something. This is not the way you do it. Why do we attack every citizen in this county? Every citizen, because you make something that says 2 or 3 people, and I really feel for them. My wife has a problem with this, and I hate to have our neighbors do what they did, but we can overcome that. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Next on the list is Randall Smith of Gravel Lick. Randall?
My name's Randall Smith. I live on Gravel Lick Road section of Castlewood, and I come here in opposition of this ordinance. First of all, but I live within 100 feet of the highway. I also have neighbors within 200 feet of me on 3 sides, and some have dogs, some don't, but we managed to get along, and I'm fortunate. I thank the Lord for that. But what I want to say is, as far as the noise level, I live, according to Google, I live 3.4 miles from the fairground. And I can sit and listen to the programs as the crow flies. I can sit and listen to the fair going on. But that's only once a year. That's not what I would consider a public nuisance. But now, I sympathize with these people. Mr. Osborne, Mr. Keene, it's an individual thing. And if the board wants to consider something, let's consider a nuisance ordinance where it's individually handled. If they're causing nuisance by their profanity or loud music and something, then that is totally different. And as far as religious, I'm a Christian, but unfortunately, religion does not. It's not only Christian. There are other religions that promote profanity, all sorts of vile talk and behavior, and they can use that under this ordinance to carry on however they want. But if you want to stop it, then you need some form to individualize these incidents through a ordinance or a law to stop just the individual harassment in the county and not punish the whole county for whatever's going on. This action here sounds to me, it's just malicious behavior caused by a few people. And if under state laws, it's covered in public. You know, you can't do this in public. But it doesn't cover private property. So if my harassment extends, or my vulgarity or profanity extends beyond my property lines and toward my neighbors or whatever, then I'm the one responsible, not these other citizens in the county. And I should be held responsible if I do that. And that's the main point I want to make. Let's help these people, but let's do it in the right way. Come up, I mean, a lot of minds in this county. Come up with something that we can do this in the right way and still not infringe on the freedoms of the law-abiding, peace-loving citizens. And I thank the board for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. That comes to the end of my list. I'm going to make one more call for anyone that feels like they haven't got on the list and they want to speak. Mr. Kaiser, I guess that's you.
Yes, ma'am. That is me. I apologize for not getting on the list. I'm Nathan Kaiser, 918 Green Valley Road, Lebanon, Virginia. I'm in Steve Breen's district. I spoke at length with Mr. Harold Osborne, who's one of the people who had a complaint and has an issue. Just wanted to learn more about what his problems are. Anyway, learned a lot about what he had said when he was up here. And Mr. Stevens, a problem also, and I'm in agreement with several of the others, including Mr. Smith, who just spoke, in that this ordinance is far too reaching. And with 19 exemptions, and that's exemption classes, it can extends far beyond that. That is just, it's ridiculous. If you're passing anything that needs 19 exemptions, you're doing the wrong thing. This needs to be pinpointed, and it needs to be in my opinion, a nuisance law. If someone's a repeat violator who continues harassing their neighbors, then we need to pass a ordinance in that fashion. Not what we got here. This right here is like, if you told me to paint that door and I came in with a paint sprayer and taped up all these little placards here, but then sprayed the entire room, those are the exemptions, and the whole room got sprayed, but all I was supposed to do is that door. Guys, this is way out. We can talk exemptions all day. Like Pastor Don says, the exemption needs to be, this ordinance needs to be gone. And if you're wanting to try to pass this, I encourage you to try to have a public hearing. It has not been done for this particular ordinance. It came up last time. There was a public hearing. Many people came out just like tonight. Have a public hearing next month. See how many people come out against this thing. Now, like I said, Mr. Stevens and Mr. Osborne have got a legit concern. They are being harassed by their neighbors. It needs to be addressed. Must be addressed. That kind of harassment is not acceptable. But this is not how you do it. Not how you do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kaiser. Okay, Mr. Taylor, would you like? Tiller, I apologize. Edward Tiller, he's going to speak to us.
I'm Edward Tiller and live on Big A Mountain, and it's a privilege to be here this evening, and really we live in a good area. We've been blessed around here. There's things that happen and that we don't agree with, but I'm telling you, even in church, I was concerned about the noise. You know, sometimes I get loud, and I've been told I got loud, but I want to get a little louder for my God, and He's been good to us, and you know, this life here, we don't always agree with things that goes on, but we need to be content and love each other. That's what it's about, you know, because none of us is going to be here in this life long. We're this like a vapor. We'll come, appear, and we're gone. And, you know, and if we can learn to live with each other, because I'm planning on going to a place where we can live forever. And I'm telling you, if in heaven, it's going to be noisy. I believe there's going to be rejoicing. And it's going to be happiness. And you know, and if we can't love each other and be good to each other here in this life, boy, I tell you, you're barking up the wrong tree. We better have let God lead us. And some of you may not be Christians, but I'm telling you, it's time we're getting ready and serving God. You think about noise, think about in Ukraine over there. Those families, it's heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking. Those families, you know, I was in Vietnam. I fought over there. But I was only there so long. I was shot at and bombs going off. But I knew I was coming home if I made it through. And those people over there, they ain't got nowhere to go. Boy, I tell you, we ought to be thankful today. And it's going to be noisy in heaven. I believe they'll be shouting and rejoicing. We love all of you, and I appreciate the job you've done. And the main thing for every one of us, this might not be in order, but for us to look up to God and trust in God. He's the author and finisher of faith. We love every one of you. God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Tiller. You have blessed us tonight. Okay. All hearts clear. Anyone else? Yes, sir. This is a public expression. You just come right on. We need your name.
Chester Ball.
Chester Ball.
Yeah, I live at New Garden Road, Honecker. And they got talking about this ordinance and things. And I understand people's got problems. I got problems. But they got talking about weed eating things. If I do any weed eating, I got to get it done early. Because when it go getting warm, I can't breathe. So I've got to get out and get it. Now, I don't do it to aggravate my neighbors. That's just the way it is. I got to do it when I can breathe to do it. And I've always done it early. Always worked in the mines. My lungs about gone. But as long as the Lord blesses, I'm going to weed eat. And I don't mean no disrespect. Laws or no laws, I'm going to weed eat. Because I've always done it. You know what I mean? That's just the way it is. And as far as churches goes, folks, you need to leave them alone. Let the churches govern their own selves. They got pastors and deacons and things to take care of their churches. You just don't need to mess with them. I mean, that's just wrong. I mean, I pastored for a lot of years, and we've never had no problem. It's always went all right. And I just think this is the wrong thing that you're trying to do. But like I say, for us weed eating the noise and stuff, I got to get out and get it if I get anything done. And I mean, that's just the way it is, because I can't breathe if it gets warm. And I don't know how long I got left, but I will weed eat, take care of my family as long as it's possible. I think that's all I got. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Come on up. Give us your name and your address, please.
My name's Timothy Hess, and I live in the drill section of Honecker. How you, Mr. Eaton? You know, we talk about young people. We were all young at one time. I was young. Got my first car, and you know, the first thing I wanted to do, put a stereo system in it. And whether listening, I'm a minister too at Drill Chapel. I fall under Chester Ball, but he's my pastor. And I don't listen to what I used to listen to. But if you would have come to me, or somebody come to me and forced to me what I couldn't listen to, the more a young person's wanting to do exactly what you're going to harp at them. Honecker, when I was growing up, I lived beside the big two-story house tore down beside Napa. You know where that's at? People would park up at the old Shamrock, young people, not drug heads. I'm just talking young people, play a little bit of music. I can remember sitting on a porch and listening to them, and they had a good time. Now you go through Honecker, and every time you turn around, because of their ordinance, a young person could be sitting at Double Quick, not doing nothing, not doing a thing.
Mr.
He's got to move.
Talk to us.
He's got to move. And I understand that I lived in a trailer park. My house burnt in Row Trailer Park. I had a trailer, and I understand there is some things that can be handled individually. But don't go to putting a label on every single thing. Just because you don't like what they do or what they listen to, you can't say, well, you listen to that. Now, you can't listen to that. I'm going to write you a citation. They're still young. If we go to forcing stuff, if you would have forced religion on me or forced Christ on me, I probably wouldn't be a minister today. I would have done the opposite. Somebody taught me about him, explained to me who he was. I love him. I worship him. I want to be heard. I don't want to have to worry about whether or not our church is too amplified down the street or somebody gets mad at Drill Chapel and says, well, they're too loud. I don't want to be worried about when my child is 17 years old and I get his first vehicle or something and he might have his country music turned up. I can't force nothing on my own child. They have to do it themselves. I can't force salvation on somebody. I can't force their way of life. But if he's got his country music turned up too loud, or if he listens to rock and roll, whatever he decides as he gets older, he's just 11 right now, my oldest, but I can't force something on him as far as what he listens to. You have to look at it as an individual thing. Is this person continuing to ride through the biggest neighborhood with every speaker running? Or is he riding down 19 in Rosedale and somebody calls? What's the difference in my Jake brake in my 18-wheeler? I can go down Rosedale and wake everybody up. Are you going to come take my Jake brake out of my 18-wheeler?
I live right beside the road.
Huh? Hey, I live in Drill. When they were hauling that coal down through there, and I live up on Lee Martin's old strip job, I could hear the Jake brake running by Drill Chapel Church, but you can't take it out. Individualize this thing. You can't go past the thing, as they said, what's the use of having it if it's going to have 45 exemptions in it? I mean, you know what? We've never had it before. And the number one thing I told Steve as I sit down there's a church right in the middle of that. And every one of these things, it might be exempt now, but you pass it, how long is it going to be before you remove that exemption? How long is it going to be before you remove that exemption because somebody gets mad at Drill Chapel or somebody gets mad at Church of Christ in Clarks Valley? How long will it be before you move the exemption? Don't pass this thing. Individualize it. Have a little sense. We were all young, every one of you. I guarantee you had a radio and had it blaring at one point in time going down the road.
Thank you, Mr. Hess.
Guarantee it.
Appreciate you. All right. Here we go.
Thank you, Board. I'll be very quick. Don't have much. I echo a lot of the same sentiments that were shared. I'm James Nunley, 100 Brumley Circle, Lebanon, Virginia. Appreciate your time. I do want to quickly share one thing that's not been mentioned. Currently, the two sides that have been heard, I feel for those that have bad neighbors. I'm very thankful for the good neighbors that I have. But there are people who will eventually choose to try to weaponize this. They'll choose to weaponize it against neighbor on neighbor, and they'll try to weaponize it against the church. Guarantee it. That's right. We've battled it all year, right in front of you. So please be considerate of that. I don't think we want to go down this road. As was echoed so often, we've seen it, and it was not a good decision in other situations. So please consider that very discreetly. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pastor Nunley. Anybody else?
Good evening. Thank you for your time. My name is Wayne Hubbard. I live 989 Strouth Ranch section of Swords Creek, Virginia. Mr. Eaton is my supervisor, and certainly all the comments that's been made, I think, should be hitting to your hearts tonight to see where we stand here in Russell County regarding this noise ordinance. Personally, I haven't had a chance to read this revised. All I saw was the draft, but apparently sometimes over the weekend or something, this whole thing has changed. And I haven't, had the privilege to read that. But with 19 exemptions, why are we passing an ordinance that needs 19 exemptions? And I agree with Pastor Nunley. I think it certainly will be used to weaponize against the churches at some point. I don't know what point that would be, and I don't know what point it would be that someone comes in here to you guys with a concern with a particular exemption where you say, well, let's remove that exemption. One by one, they could be removed. And I don't think that under the way that this has been written at this point, that we have had a proper public hearing. I think it's been changed, at least what I'm hearing from the draft I saw, it has been changed. We need a proper public hearing on what is existing before it's ever voted on. So you guys can hear our concerns and give us a chance to actually look at the ordinance and read the ordinance as it exists tonight, not how it did last Wednesday, because it's different. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hubbard. Anybody else?
Hello, my name is Aaron Burke, and I'm from Swords Creek, Virginia. My concern, I'm a Christian, and I get mighty loud in church at times, but I have other concerns too. I myself am an avid gun enthusiast. I like to target practice on my property. Now, as we all know, guns are very loud instruments. Is that exempt? Am I gonna get in trouble if my neighbors don't like me shooting on my property? I mean, that's something I would like to know. As many of them have spoken, how, like they said, how long is it till you remove the exemption for churches? You know, that's the most important thing to me, but I have many other concerns, and as Lynn said, these individuals that are having troubled neighbors, I believe one man said that he was from Lebanon, allow the town council to pass an ordinance in that area. Don't brush the whole county with an issue that only a few individuals are having. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Anyone else?
It's Jill Dye, and I live in Honaker, Virginia. I had actually spoke with a member on the board, and it was brought up about a subdivision, you know, restrictions being in a subdivision, because I am against the noise ordinance. And he spoke to me, and I said, there's a difference. I moved from Buchanan County to Russell County. I moved here 13 years ago, and when I moved onto my property that I paid for, there was nothing that's saying how loud I can be on my land. And that's a freedom that I have on my land. I feel like that you all, if you pass this, you're dictating what I can do on my land. And that bothers me really bad. And, you know, and I also feel like this is just a wolf in sheep's clothing. Eventually, it will reach to the church. And that concerns me because I love the Lord and I don't want anything, you know, to go wrong with our Christians in this community. And I ask you, please hear the majority. The majority, I do sympathize for those that have trouble. I do, and I hope that you'll find a way to help them. But the majority, we want freedom on our lands. Please consider not passing this and voting no on this noise ordinance. Thank you.
Anybody else? It's not on my list.
My name is Joshua Hess. I live in the Lynn Springs section of Swords Creek. It's already been said a few times, but I feel like I ought to exercise my First Amendment right, considering it's being taken from us very quickly, is, you know, that this is just overreach. It's about control. You know, you got the building ordinance, you got the litter ordinance, now the noise ordinance. My question is, where does it end? Where does the ordinances end? I mean, don't we already have an administration of idiots trying to control us from up in the Capitol already? I mean, we really do. Idiots, cowards, and now you're trying, it sounds like you're trying to do the same thing to us. Don't bring what's up there down here to this wonderful county. I grew up in this county. I was born in D.C., but I grew up in this county. I love it here, David. I have a lot of pride in this county. I really do. I went to school in Swords Creek and Honaker, graduated, and I've lived here pretty much my whole life. And I love it here. But I'm going to tell you something. You thought your census numbers was bad before, keep passing ordinances, and it'll go way down. Because people will move. We will get tired of it. We already, like I said, have an administration trying to take away our constitutional rights. We have freedoms, 10 of them. It's written on a piece of paper, and it was written back in 1776. And those freedoms are being infringed upon, and now you're trying to infringe upon a county's freedom. It ain't right. It's control. It's all about control. And that's all I had to say, but please don't bring what's up there down here to our little county.
Thank you, Mr. Hess. Anybody else? Anybody else? All hearts clear? I'm going to close the public hearing at this time. Thank you. Now, moving on in the agenda is constitutional officers, reports and requests. Do we have any? All right. Moving on, we have the county attorney reports and requests. Ms. Patton, noise ordinance is your very first one. Thank you, Madam Chair. Pull up the ordinance, and you'll have to bear with me a little because I'm going to try to go through the concerns and how it applies. I guess the most common concern was how this ordinance might apply to religious services. And while my interpretation is that Exemption K protects that, as it is, religious expression is protected by First Amendment. I can understand the concerns about the amplification of the sound, especially given COVID, and that many churches are still doing outdoor services to allow their people to feel. Thank you. I couldn't think of the word. Their congregation to feel safe. We have found other language, and I want to leave. My recommendation would be to leave Section K if the board does consider to pass this. But there's also another exemption that is closely related, and that is Exemption C in the way the ordinance is written now. And as it reads now, it's bells or chimes from place of religious worship, sounds produced by bells, chimes, or other similar instruments or devices from a place of worship. I found some additional language that I think would be a good replacement for that. That would make it very clear that this does not apply to church services, that this is not in any way meant to infringe upon that. And let me, again, I'm sorry, you have to bear with me so I can find everything. The language that I would suggest in putting in Exemption C would be religious services, religious events, or religious activities or expressions, including but not limited to music, singing, bells, chimes, and organs, which are not part of such service, event, activity, or expression. So if that language is in there, that clearly covers anything that would be a church service, and the exemption means that the noise ordinance doesn't apply, so it does not matter about what time it would happen. So I think that would be a good replacement for that, just to make it clear on what the intent of what this board is trying to do. I think Mr. Dye brought up that and I have heard this comment before, that there are people who work second and third shift and they sleep at different times, and I understand that, and that's pretty common in our area. But one thing about this ordinance is it is a general application ordinance. You cannot, we've worked really hard from where we started. Those of you who read the ordinance that the board first considered in 2020, it was very broad. It didn't specify exactly what was a violation very well, and it didn't have as many exemptions. And so at the time, the comments that the board received and the concern of the board after hearing those comments is that by not having those exemptions, people would be subject to more liability by not having all that exempt. So I know the exemptions, that's been an issue, but in my opinion, from a legal standpoint, that's good because it clearly shows it's going to be a defense that you are not violating this ordinance. Let's see. I know another common concern has been weed eating, and I do want to clarify, just so that the board and the public understand, yard maintenance activities, sound produced by routine yard maintenance, including but not limited to mowing, trimming, clipping, leaf blowing, and snow blowing, are exempt except as provided in the ordinance. So what the ordinance actually prohibits, it sets a time frame. So those activities would be limited to they would be prohibited from 10 p.m. at night until 7 a.m. in the morning within a residential area, and prohibited between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. within any non-residential area, including any mixed-use site. And so what I would think about that is, farms and things like that. So you're around homes and things, 7 a.m. But again, that is a proposal. If the board wants to consider moving that up, you certainly can. That's a pretty common time frame, but that's something that the board can consider. But that just sets a limitation on it, will not occur during those hours. Mr. Sharp, is that you? I'm sorry. Mr. Ball, I apologize. You're out of order, Mr. Ball. Thank you. Ms. Patton, continue, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Another concern was animals. That is a specific exemption. It's Exemption B, and it says sound produced by animals, including but not limited to barking dogs. That would include farm animals and I mean, it doesn't define animals, but it's, you know, because that would be a common complaint, it specifically says that barking dogs are not a violation of this ordinance. One other concern that was brought up was firearms, and that's also a specific exemption. That's Exemption F, and it's sound produced by the lawful discharge of a firearm, including any sound produced at a gun club, shooting range, shooting preserve, or target, trap, or skeet range. So that would be. And as far as just in general, the concerns about, even if the ordinance is passed and it has this, the First Amendment cannot be infringed, and if a government were to take something away or enforce something, that is something that could be challenged in court. So to say that it's a slippery slope, if this ordinance would not violate the First Amendment, in fact, it specifically says that expression protected under that amendment is exempt from this ordinance. But even if there's protections for that, you know, anything that violates the First Amendment, if that is brought before a court, it will be invalidated. So you know, even if it's a different attorney, if it's me, I would always advise this board on whether something was going to violate the First Amendment. So that's not a legal concern that I have. And I think another concern that was brought up is that potentially a neighbor could weaponize this, and I mean, I think that's a valid concern. However, laws and ordinances are put in place for the protection of all citizens, and unfortunately, there's no way to make any law completely protected from abuse. I take, for an example, and I don't use it lightly, and there may be people in this room who have been the victim of an assault. But in the legal system, I've seen it over and over again where people get mad at their neighbor or their friend or their spouse or their significant other, and they will have them charged with assault. And they go and they take the warrant out, and that's completely wrong, and that makes it hard on the entire system. But I feel confident in saying that the solution is not to get rid of that crime, and because there are true victims of that. So that's the analysis I have, but I mean, there's no way to make any law or ordinance completely foolproof from being abused by any person. So I mean, that's just a consideration that the board has to have. I think I've addressed most of the concerns. If the board members have any other questions, I'll do my best to answer.
Okay, does anyone on the board have any, well, I tell you what, yes, we need to have some discussion on this for sure. Mr. Breeding, I'll recognize you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. You know, based on a lot of concerns that I've heard from people in my district, some of you are here tonight, and now from a lot of you who are not in my district, I feel it's very important that we give everybody an opportunity to review the ordinance as it's presented in our board packet, because I believe it has been modified somewhat, because we have put a mechanism into it whereby you can determine what the ambient or the normal noise level is and what the rise caused by the disturbance. So I've talked to a lot of people, and it's pretty obvious to me that nobody is really, I know Nate read it because I sent him a copy. We talked about it, and I did send Nate a copy, and maybe he should have shared it with some people. But I would like everybody to have a copy of this, look at it. Apparently, a lot of people missed the original advertisement for the ordinance, and it was a long time ago, and I know how that is. You want to go, but something comes up and you can't get there. But you expressed a lot of concerns about a document that you really haven't read in depth. But I want you to read it, and I want you to look at it. We put measurable limits in there. The sheriff will be the one to administer those limits, and there's set levels that you can't exceed. So I think what I'd like to propose is that we have a public hearing. I think it's justified, and we can have that at our next Board of Supervisors meeting. We can have it, that will give you guys adequate time to read this document and develop any further comments that you might have. And believe me, I take all your comments seriously. I've written 26 of them down here. I mean, there's 26 individuals who spoke. But
And we need to have it in the big room.
yeah, we'll probably have it in the big room, down at the conference center. But the board can hear those public comments plus anybody else that you want to bring in, and we can get their comments. And once we hear that, then we can make a decision based on those first-hand comments from everybody. And that'll be from a fully informed public that's seen the document that we're actually advertising. And I just want to tell you one other thing. I'm only one member on this board, but I feel like I can, and I speak for myself, but I feel like I can speak for the feelings on this board. And I want to tell you, it is not our intent to inhibit any kind of God-given constitutional rights, such as worship or freedom of speech. That is not the intent. We've just been brought some issues that have popped up, and trying to work out a way that we can help some people, who are entitled to peace. All we're trying to do, I guess, is make an effort to protect the sanctity of your home. Because when it comes right down to it, your home is the one place that should be able to go to and get some peace and quiet and rest. And that's not always the case. So I guess with that said, I'd like to make a motion, Madam Chairman. Is that appropriate?
I'll accept a motion, Mr. Breeding.
I will make a motion that we conduct a public hearing on the noise ordinance as it is presented in our board packet tonight. And I know Katie has been working on that for over a month or so, and we probably had it, a week and a half, couple of weeks, I guess now. But I want to make a motion, we conduct a public hearing on a noise ordinance as presented in this month's board packet at our April 4th Board of Supervisors meeting to be held as closely after 6 p.m. as possible. And you have to understand that we have a few preliminary things that we have to do, but we'll try to get into it just as quick as we can. And that the county administrator have copies of that ordinance available at the county administrator's office. A digital copy be placed on the county website as soon as possible. And that the advertisement of the public hearing be immediately placed on the county website and advertise it in any other way that we're required to do that. Now, I know we have to give at least 2 weeks' notice, but we need to try to get it out as soon as possible. So that'll be my motion, Madam Chair.
I'll second that too.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion. Anybody got any discussion?
Well, I was thinking as Mr. Breeding was talking, he wants to have a public hearing. I thought we had one. Plus, what people are saying here tonight, they don't want the restriction period. So I don't know that a step later on that we're going to make any change, because I'm sure they're going to come back. They don't want this government overreach.
Amen.
Well,
Excuse me.
And
Hold it down.
And if
I
that
can have
is
you
going-
removed.
If that's the opinion, I guess you would say, and the mindset, I don't know.
Well, I'm just going by the fact that a couple of people have asked, at least two people that I recall asked, said they would like the opportunity for another public hearing. And, you know, when it comes right down to it, when you hear all this, each of us will have to vote our own conviction, our own heart on this. And, you know, I take seriously what the public has to say, not just people in my district. I mean, they're the ones that put me there, but I'm looking out for the county as a whole, and be assured that I don't want to be overly restrictive on anything.
Yes, we agree with that, Mr. Breeding, very much so. And you and I have had this deep conversation last week on this. And, but I do want to point out that we have not done anything to this ordinance since it went to public, but add a level of comfort for the decibels. That wasn't brought up and talked about at all tonight within the public. Their concerns was all the exemptions that we had in there prior to. So there's nothing, just so the public knows that we're having this discussion, there was nothing changed in the ordinance. Now, let me ask Ms. Patton and Mr. Lester, is anything changed in this ordinance besides adding the decibel level that Mr. Breeding asked for last month?
That's the only thing I added. That was the last piece I had because, again, we used an existing ordinance and they had their own code for how that noise level was going to be determined. And ultimately, we checked to make sure we would have the equipment to be able to do that. And so that's the language that's added. It's charts of the decibel levels and how the noise is going to be determined, rules for calibration and things like that. But all of the other exemptions with that potential modification I just suggested are the same.
Yes, so this has been out there in the public's eye for how long? Mr. Lester?
We had the first
Use your microphone.
let's go back so you can see Katie. Sorry about that. The first public hearing was published, and you had it in March of 2020. And the board has been working on it month by month, modifying certain terms and conditions of the code. So up to the point now.
And when was the last time it was modified?
At the last board meeting.
At the last board meeting, when we called that we would, we had our noise ordinance at our public hearing at that time. And we modified it, Mr. Breeding, you added decibels, because Mr. King came with his decibel machines. And here they are. And so everything is still the same. I just want to make sure that we have not misled this public in any shape, form, or fashion. You have not been misled, I promise you, not on my watch. And so I just need to make you hear this and see this that's happening, okay? So you just need to see that the noise ordinance was out there exactly as it is in our packet tonight when we had public expression in February. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It's not exactly the decibels.
The decibels was added. I said that level of comfort was added.
When was it posted on the website? It was the first one was in March of 2020. It was posted as a public hearing and in the papers. Yeah, in the website. Yep.
No, that was the first one that you all considered. This one came later in the fall when I first brought it to the board for its consideration. It was still the Albemarle County draft, and then I changed it to Russell County, but I did not know how we were going to define how the noise was going to be determined. So, but other than that, we've left all the language the same. But I think it was late fall probably that was first presented. The new one was first presented to the board.
So the current one's not been posted on the website? Yes, it is. When was it?
What?
It depends. It's under the government, under the ordinance section, the same place as the election. Yes. Okay, but it's still, but it.
Mr. Kaiser, please, you're out of order. Thank you. Appreciate it. So it was posted on the website. It's exactly the same as what we did, but the decibels were added. It came on the website when, Mr. Lester?
It came on at the same time we put the agenda back up. Each and every time we brung it back up or brung it back up. And I know there hasn't been a lot of people attending during that time, but they have been working on it. The board of supervisors, they come in and they work on one term and condition 1 month, and then the next month they'd work on another one. They've been doing this since March of 2020. So, and that was during the pandemic. You got to understand that. And it was difficult to get people in here. So each and every month they would make a few changes at the request of legal counsel or whatever citizens wanted during that time to the point they are now. So it has been a developing ordinance, so during that time, so.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. We've had discussion. I'm going to call for the vote. Roll call. Mr. Lovelace.
Yes.
Mr. Ray.
Yes.
Mr. Eaton.
Yes.
Mr. Breeding.
Yes.
Ms. Dye.
No.
Mr. Christian.
What's this pertaining to? I don't understand.
To- We're voting to have one more public hearing on this noise ordinance in April, next meeting.
Yes.
Okay. And the chair votes yes. Mr. Lester, put that on our program for next time. Thank you all.
Yes, ma'am.
We appreciate you.
Madam Chair, the next item that I have that really probably should have just been under Lonzo, but I did review it, and review some of the applicable law is the ordinance.
One moment, Ms. Patton. Those of you that would like to excuse yourself at this time, we'll give you a little break that you can go so that we can carry on the business of the county in the matter that we need to do that. So if you want to go, feel free. All ordinances should be at least available to the public. It should be, is it out here on the desk, Mr. Lester? Is the... Okay.
There were some copies that they haven't taken. It's on the website. If you're not, it's in my office, or if you send me an email, I will be glad to send it to you.
Thank you for coming. We're just here tonight. We'll try to make arrangements the next time. That's not anything. It's not anything. The last time we did it, there was 15 down there, and it cost time and effort to do that. So we'll do that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just make sure you read it. Get it right.
See you.
Okay, Ms. Patton, we're ready to proceed. If you guys will close the door back there, I'd appreciate it. We can't hear. Thank you. So now we have the ordinance on the, amending the ordinance to the Russell County elections.
Yes, Madam Chair. That's Under me, like I said, I think it should have been under Lonzo. I did review it though and review some of the code sections as far as conforming with the applicable law. One of my biggest concerns was the precincts had to have at least 100 registered voters, and I didn't know if that might be an issue. I went through all of my legal concerns with Lonzo because he is the one that drafted the actual boundaries. When I spoke with him, he informed me that none of the boundaries changed and none of the precincts changed, because there are some additional, if things like that are going to change, there's some additional notice requirements that would be required. But he advised that none of that changed, and it will be sent to the Attorney General for certification that all of that is okay. Another thing that I looked at was just making sure that there were clearly identifiable, boundary structures, existing structures pursuant to the law. So I have reviewed it, and Lonzo, I know, gave that lengthy presentation, and so I submit it to the board now for approval.
And guys, just to emphasize one more point, this, as it reads in the title, this is an ordinance amending the ordinance.
Yes.
So therefore, that tells you right there, there's no being change in boundaries or precincts. So, and we have to attest to that to the U.S., to the United States, U.S., and both the state every year. The board, the chairman of the board does a survey every year. You have to do it, and you have to certify it. I've tried to get the town mayor of Lebanon to annex a little bit more and take up, but he won't do it. And I tried to take over a few counties to good spots, but everything is as is.
So, need a motion to accept or amend the ordinance of Russell County and the district and the precincts boundaries.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion from Mr. Christian. I need a second.
I'll second it.
We have a second from Ms. Dye. Any discussion?
Yeah, I want to make a comment here. When is the primary opportunity to look at reducing our board to 5 on the school board and the board of supervisors?
That should be a county attorney question, probably.
I mean, Tazewell County and Washington County don't have 5, and we've got a lot less residents, and we've got 7. I mean, I'm just trying to look out to save money and look at some viable ways to address this. I'm just asking a question.
Well, and I haven't really looked into it. I'm sure there's some different mechanisms that you can do that. I've been looking at it strictly from the decennial updating, but you can do it at that time. I think it's 24.2, 304.1, that the board, let me find the exact language. That every 10 years thereafter, the governing body of each such locality shall reapportion the representation among the districts or wards, including, if the governing body deems it appropriate, increasing or diminishing the number of such districts or wards in order to give as nearly as is practicable representation on the basis of population. So there's not a requirement. It's in the board's discretion what's appropriate to either increase or diminish, and that would be talking about the 10-year realignment. I don't know if there's other provisions in the code that might allow you to do that at a different time, but I would have to look. That's the only one that I know of right now is when you do the...
Yeah, thank you, Katie. It's been brought to my attention from multiple constituents throughout the whole county, wondering, I guess with the expense, the loss of residents, as the county administrator just expressed this evening, that the alignment stay the same, but if we're continuing to lose residents, and I have concerns about ordinances, because I served on town council 14 years, and I tell you, ordinances are sometimes devastating to who comes and who wants to live in your county. So I'm really concerned about that, because I fought this battle on the town council, and now I'm here in the county doing the same thing. So I'm concerned about that, and I think we need to look at every way possible to eliminate waste and to try to make our county function better. So if you could let me know maybe at the next meeting or something, I'll let Mr. Breeding say something I think he's wanting to talk.
Yeah, Katie, I don't know if you'll know this, or maybe Lonzo will know it. I think the legislation, as I read it, the legislation requires us to have an at-large member.
Yes, that's
And,
our
and I
county.
think that was, excuse me, I think that was done back when we actually had 6 districts, I think. And then we were using a tiebreaker, which ultimately found out it was illegal to use. So, and I think that's when they created, I think, I think about Tazewell County, and the Tazewell County has probably twice the citizenship, but they only have 5 supervisors, but they have just 5 districts as well. I think the way we're structured now, if we went to 5, we'd have to have an at-large in 4 districts. So I think, if that's something we want to consider, if you can find out if and when we can do that, I think we would have to eliminate that at-large position and just go with 5 districts, But it needs to be an odd number, because of that.
Yes, you would have to change the form of government. The form of government that we have requires us to have an at-large member. So we would have to, there's different forms of county government, and we would have to change ours to do that.
So we've always had an at-large board member. We just created an additional district the last time.
I assume so. I mean, I really don't know much about the history, but if we've always had this form of government, then we had to, unless they changed the legislation somewhere along the line, we've always had an at-large member.
You always had that large, you added the additional district.
So it must have been.
Yeah, because I've read everything of this history.
No.
Let's get that fact
Okay,
right.
all right.
The current
Order,
board of
please.
supervisors.
Let's talk about this. Mr. Eaton, Mr. Breeding, we're concerned about saving $1. Mr. Lester, tell me how much it cost for 2 supervisors.
Well, if you listen to Mr. Eaton, he owes us at the end of the day, so he's paying us. And I'm trying to be facetious, but every board member, and one of the things that this board has done is to ensure that their monthly stipend and what they get, and it is one of the lowest in the state. I mean, you can do a comparison analysis and they work for nothing. I mean, it's just basically it. But as far as the at-large or the number of districts, we will do a little bit more research in this, and this is the point. At the next election, y'all could vote to restructure the board too, but you would end up serving out your remaining terms, but the full board has to agree to it unanimously. I mean,
It's not just us, it's a school board too.
That is
So you'd
correct.
have to run the calculations on both.
The school board would have to match just like we presented tonight. Every board would have to match your board. So it is a big undertaking, but if the board has the pleasure of it, as far as the cost going in, and that was one of the things I was trying to point out for the precincts, now with electoral boards and elections, and that includes the current administration, they pay for the majority of the election costs. So it's not a lot for a precinct anymore. It's not a lot for the election board. They do get a lot of state funding to help supplement these now. It's the community and what the board of supervisor wants. What do you feel comfortable with at large with 25,781 residents? So.
And the territories would have to be divided up again, so
Yes.
those are going to be, just for instance, we know that by looking at our maps today, that District 3 has a huge territory. A huge territory. He wraps up around District 4 and he comes down and wraps up around District 2. And with that being said, I have some constituents that are outliers. A lot of people in little pockets in the hollers and the hills. And they have to travel X amount of miles to vote anyway. And it's been very difficult on some people when it was redistricted again and chopped up again. So those might be some of the things that we need to consider, because what you're going to save in a supervisor's position is less than $12,000.
Yes.
Less.
A lot less.
Where is it?
A lot less.
A lot less than that.
Yes.
So we're talking $7,000.
If that.
Okay. 2 supervisors.
2 school board members.
Okay.
If you could throw
So-
those in too, yes.
Well,
So
I mean,
as we
times
move
10
along now,
years.
remember where your government stuff is, your price to have
David Page.
representation for people that live in the places that Mr. Hess is talking about. So that's just some of the things that I would, since we're having this discussion. But I do believe we have a motion and a second on the floor. I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor? Aye. This is the
Ordinance.
the ordinance, Oris.
To amend the ordinance.
Madam Chair, I just want to tell you, when people bring these to me, that's the reason I'm just presenting them to the
I understand,
the
and I think you
constituents.
should.
And
Yes, we
you know,
do.
I'm just obligated to bring them to the board when
Yes,
they
and
bring them to my
I do
attention.
think that, I do think that there's a lot of misinformation out there that.
Needs to be clarified.
We need to make sure that they understand their representation is far greater than the dollar. I will tell you that. So anyway, we'll just let the board decide that. That's a board action, not a Lou Wallace action. Okay, the Cumberland Plateau Regional Waste Management Authority, the 2022 Manpower and User Agreement.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. These two agreements are something that we approve annually. We've structured it that way just so that we could make sure that we could keep understanding and control on what's going on with their waste management authority. I've spoken with the county administrator, and he requested, or he stated that he had no requested changes at this time, so we've submitted it for the board's approval exactly how it was presented last year.
Okay,
And there are no changes at all to this?
No.
From last year?
I was going to ask my two board members to explain that to everybody.
Yeah, it's identical to what we approved last year.
Very good. Okay, is everybody satisfied with this and how we did business last year? Then I entertain a motion.
So
I'll make a
moved.
motion.
All right, I have a motion. I need a second. Oris? Did you give me a motion? So I'm going to ask you for a second. Oh, Tim gave a motion down here, so
Okay,
I'm
I'll
getting your
second.
second. All right, that's how we're doing it. All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. County Administrator reports and requests. Mr. Lester.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first item on the county administrator request, reports and requests, of course, is we finally, after 2 years and during the pandemic, and we have permission to go ahead and advertise for the Daint Depot facility, the renovation on it. So that is one of the things that that we'll be going to bid with. It is on the street. Thompson Litton is the engineer that has designed this. So if any county contractors that wants to do business with it, it is on our website. So, go out and look at it. This is for reporting. Second thing on the county administrative reports, again, is VDOT. They seem to take up a good amount of our time, and that's okay. Is a VDOT land use permit for CSX road closure to repair the railroad crossing on Route 626. This will be closed during that time on March the 28th, the 29th, the 30th, and the 31st. And we'll put that up on the website too in the paper. So VDOT's going to do that to make sure that everybody, know that railroad closing is closed. So that's as far as the reporting. Now, first line item on the county administrative request is the Finney disposal site, and I have talked with legal counsel on this, and she's wanting to put in some additional terms on it. This is the Finney. It is the same amount of money. There is a different owner, so we're going to tighten it a little bit on the terms and conditions, so she feels a little bit more comfortable with it. So I'd like to have a motion that the lease be approved upon legal counsel's, modifications and changes to the terms and conditions of the lease.
Will this continue to be a month-to-month lease, basically?
It
The
is
way
a
I
month-
read it, it's
yeah, that
basically,
is
it can be
basically-
canceled in 30 days.
Yes.
Because ultimately, we need to get.
You don't, right,
Yeah.
exactly.
I guess if I may, one of the concerns I had is there was no end date or anything in the lease, and so I don't know if you may not be able to give that. It does provide for termination upon 30 days notice, but typically when I do a lease, there is at least an end date or a renewal date or something like that. I don't know.
All right.
As long as we have that termination clause.
It is. And that is good. We utilize it's a small piece of property. It's for and we took the template from the previous county attorney that developed this on this, and we were switching ownership. So he was amenable to it because that was a good thing, because he could have we could have been looking for another new disposal site quickly. So that gives an opportunity to stay there. So again, I'm asking for the board upon legal counsel's, changes for the termination clause with a termination date for approval.
I'll make that
3
motion.
years, 36-month term. You
Okay.
good with that, Katie?
Katie, you
36
good with
month
that?
term.
Then I'll make that motion with legal counsel's final approval.
Okay, we have a motion. I need a second.
Second.
I've got several seconds. We'll take Carl. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up on the agenda is the accounts payable position advertisement.
Yes, ma'am. Next one is and this is to replace Miss Karen Davis. She is working in her office. She is retired. That is good. So I need a motion for the accounts payable position advertisement. Yes, ma'am.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion. I need a second.
I'll second.
Got several seconds. Pick one, Vicky. And all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last on the county administrator request, of course, is the Board of Supervisors discretionary fund. I've had discussions with various board members, and it's getting to that time. Due to the pandemic for the last 2 years, y'all have not been able to work on some of your community, needs and wants. So you gave it 2 years ago, you had to park it, we put it back in the general fund. So this is an opportunity now that the weather is opening up to, open it up for each supervisor, have a discretionary fund between each one of you, or $5,000 each, for a total of $35,000.
I'll make
So
a
I will
motion
make
to
for that.
reestablish that.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion. Well, I'm going to have discussion. Now, we're talking about saving dollars, and here we go. $35,000. Now, I want $5,000 in my community. I do. So I think that we all need to be cognizant of how we spend our discretionary money. I'm challenging each and every one of you guys to put it in your community properly, into those programs that we need, and think about the programs that we have going on with our children and in our communities that need assistance from us that they don't normally get. So I'm challenging you with that. Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That concludes my county administrator reports and requests. Thank you.
Okay, very good. We're moving on to the board discussion and reminders. And before I do that, I'll take chair privilege for just a moment to say, check your board book. We have lots of committee reports in here. We have the PSA, the IDA, everything that functions in our county. Please take note of that. Please take note of the expenditures. Watch where this money is going. That is my challenge to each and every one of you guys tonight. So with very little ado, we've been here a while, and I apologize. We'll look at board discussion and reminders. I'll start down here with Mr. Lovelace. You got anything?
The only thing I wanted to do is say congratulations to Dr. Kim Hooker, who was appointed as the new superintendent for the schools. Kim's been with the school system 34 years, and we look forward to what she's going to do. We'll miss Dr. Brown, but we look forward to what Kim's going to do for the school system.
Thank you, Mr. Lovelace. Mr. Ray?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about the Russell County Kids Fishing Day. We hadn't had that for about 3 years, so, this year I think we need to give them that money that we've always given.
So you've already spent your money then, haven't you?
Are you contributing your discretionary money already?
Well, I thought we always did
I'm
that
pretty
to
sure
both of us.
Scotty will catch you at the door now.
Now, the word is out. You're a trapped man. All right. Anything else, Mr. Ray?
No, ma'am. Chair.
All right, Mr. Eaton.
Yes, and the reason I want to do the discretionary funds, and I agree with Ms. Wallace, it needs to be spent wisely. I look at these as investments in our community, not wasteful spending. One of the ones I want to fund is the Red Bud Festival event, and the other one is the Scott McLaughlin's Kid Fishing Day. You can actually take that money out of my discretionary fund to be able to support these things because these are great opportunities for our area. One thing I'd like to also do, Madam Chair, is I'd like to congratulate the Honaker girls basketball team on their win tonight. They beat Perry McClure, and they will be playing in the state championship.
Hey, good. Yes.
Another thing is I need an update from the county administrator on the Miller Creek Bridge. I know we've been working on this, Lonzo, about dedicating that bridge for the Veterans Memorial. If you could get me an update on that, I would really appreciate it.
I'll reach out to Jeff.
Another item I've had the opportunity to talk briefly with Madam Chair tonight because it was brought to mind and Mr. Breeding's attention about 2 years ago. We had met with the Smiley Ratliff Foundation in regards to a piece of property across from the governor's mansion. And in our discussion, they wanted the county to participate with them to have a park there on about, I think it's 20-some acres. 20-some acres of land. And Ms. Wallace has talked to me briefly, but has also said that she would be willing to meet with them and Ms. Dye, that's in her district. Anybody else, that would want to look at this opportunity. There's a lot of historic value there, and I think it would open up a real area for people to hike and bike and fish there in that vicinity. And I'll let, and as I pass it on down the road here, I guess I'll let Steve talk. And let me make sure I didn't miss just anything. No, I don't think I did. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You probably did not, Mr. Eaton. You're real good at this. Mr. Breeding.
Yes, ma'am. Lonzo, have we hired a litter officer yet?
We have interviewed a litter officer. We're doing a background check on the litter officer right now. He is a very promising candidate. He is a veteran. He just got out of Afghanistan, and he has a background in sheriff. So we're gaining a double one here. So hopefully everything works out within the next 2 weeks.
Okay, within 2 weeks, okay. The only other item that I have is, I'm feeling some pressure on this animal shelter. We've had this thing kicked down the road, and I guess the only reason we've had any grace on it is because of the COVID. But as I understand, the last time I talked to anybody at the animal shelter, which I guess was Josh, back at the fair, he said that, we didn't have much time left as far as, trying to get everything up to date. They were going to start putting pressure back on us. Is that correct?
They had mentioned, the condition of the facility before, but that's been for the last 7 years, something like that. So, but I can reach out again, get an update from Dr. Meister, because Josh left. There's been a void there.
Yeah.
So if y'all will, want Dr. Meister to come and talk to the board, or?
Well, I don't even think it's necessary to talk to the board. We just need to find out where we're at on that. Okay. And is it, now that COVID is hopefully winding down.
That would put a delay in it. Yes.
It may be something that we need to proceed along with, especially given the funding scenarios now. There may be some monies out there we could use to construct this. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Breeding. Ms. Dodd, do you have anything?
No, not tonight, thank you.
Mr. Christian, you have anything?
Well, I went to Big A Mountain to that out on the couches place and took a picture yesterday, and it's still a lot of stuff there. I don't know how much they're doing, Alonzo, how much they're moving, but it's moving slow. And then on this thing about Kenneth Hart's park project out in Elk Garden, I hear that he's willing to give us lease to us for $1, but there's a lot of legal aspects things that we're going to have to go through before we can do that. And do we want to invest Luann, I think you and I touched on, ain't there, some legal aspects and do's and don'ts that we can't get
well,
ourselves involved in something like that?
In my limited knowledge, yes, I think there are things that we need to look at to make sure it's advantageous for our county. And I think that recreation is the thing. Some people say it's not, but I do think that everyone deserves the opportunity to have fun and stay and play in their community, as we call it, from where I come from. So I'm all about that, and I'm very supportive of that. So, but there is a direction that you can go in, and the state does allow certain things, and for protection of the county. And those are some of the things that we need to sit down and we need to have a roundtable meeting about.
I would love to see it. I mean, it's in her district and where I live and close to where I live, West End. But, you know, we're gonna have to take the legal steps and precautions before we jump and say, yes, okay, we're gonna do this and that.
Yes, I don't think the county, and Mr. Eaton and I have discussed this already, I don't think the county is ready to take those kind of steps right now.
At this time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That'd be it.
Okay, and the chair has the last privilege and the last say-so. So I'm very happy to hear about the Daint depot going to bid. I'm doubly excited about a $2.5 million new sewer system from Daint all the way down to St. Paul. It's going to take some straight pipes out of the creek and do a lot of good for our drinking water and the Clinch River. So those are very wonderful things to hear tonight. Thank you all. And I do appreciate each and every one of you guys coming and speaking your piece. That's what this is all about, giving you an opportunity to say what you need to say in a gentlemanly and a lady fashion. And I think that's wonderful. So I commend each of you. I do. I look forward to the banter next month of how we're going to handle this. It's not going to change. So bone up on your ordinances. And I do declare this meeting, oh, one moment, April 4th. Yes. April 4th, 6 o'clock here. So I do declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you.